Hello, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we will be going over the macrame produce bag instructions and demonstrating how to do the whole process. By now, you should have picked up your kit, which should contain 116 feet of macrame cording. Yours will be in one ball. I had to grab two. Two keychain rings, a skein of embroidery floss. Yours might look a little different than mine, but it is going to be, embroidery floss. A needle, and that's everything that you should have, including the instructions. You will need to have the following on hand to complete this program though. So before we get started, make sure you have a ruler, some scissors. If you have additional decorative materials you want, go ahead and grab those, some tape, and I cannot stress this enough, a lot of patience. There's gonna be a lot of knot tying in this, and it's gonna get fun. So without further ado, let's get started. So for the purposes of ease, we've broken up the instruction into a couple of different sections. First, we have the cutting the cord section. Then we'll have the type of knots, and then we'll actually go through the real instructions for assembling your bag, which will include the making of the handle, the making of the bag, and finishing off the bag. So the first thing you're going to need to do is take your cord, get your scissors, and this is where your ruler is going to be important. You need to measure out 12 pieces of cord that are 8 feet long each. So 12 at 8 feet. And then with the remainder, you will need 4 pieces of cord that measure at 5 feet. Those 8 feet pieces will make your bag. Those 5 feet pieces will make your handle. Go ahead and get started. By now you should have 4 5 feet long pieces of macrame cord and 12 8-foot pieces of macrame cord. I have taped down my 8-foot pieces over here so they're off to the side, and we're going to start with our 5-foot pieces. Go ahead and grab one and go ahead and fold it in half like so. And we're going to start by making our handles. And to do that, we're going to start with what's called a lark's head or a cow hitch knot. So you're going to pull your knot through like so. Oop. There we go. Let's try that. And then you're going to pull those 2 dangling threads through the loop that you've just made. And then you're going to tighten. And we're actually going to adjust this in a minute. That was just as a demonstration, but what you want is the inside of your string of your knot, one of the dangles, to be shorter than what's on the outside. So we'll adjust that here in a moment. But to show again, our cow hitch knot, we have it roughly in half. I'm going to go ahead and adjust mine so it's not totally in half. Probably about 6 or 7 inches. I'm going to pull that through our keychain, fold over, and then we're going to pull our 2 dangling strings through and pull tight. We have the first of our 2 on this keychain. And with the second one, you'll want to make sure you match it up so that way the short end is on the inside and the long end is on the outside. All right, so let's go ahead and do that again. And again, you can, I always start by folding mine in half just to kind of get that base there. And then we're going to adjust as needed. Here we go. About even. So I'm going to put this to the left of my first cow hitch knot. We have that again. Loop, pull through, and secure. With that tightened, and with our 2 short ends on the inside, we are ready to start knotting this up. You're going to repeat that same process on your other keychain with your remaining 2 5-foot cords. All right, so to start knotting, I would highly recommend you tape this down just to make this easier for you. I'm going to go ahead and move that back a bit more. Take that down. Try and make it fairly secure so it doesn't get moved from the table. So we're going to separate our threads here. And one of the knots we're going to discuss today is called a square knot. And for the handle, a square knot is a good basic knot that you can do. And it's good and sturdy. And there's a couple of interesting things you can do with square knot. So depending on if you want to have a curved handle or just a straight handle, it's going to depend on how you do your squares. To start a square, we are going to go ahead and pull either your left or your right, it doesn't matter which one you start with, over the front two, and then under the opposite angle. So you have kind of this triangle over here where these two intersecting. And then you're going to take your opposite strand, pull under the two strings in the middle, and then through the loop on the other side. So we have this little loop here that forms over the center. The way I like to look at it is, do I make a circle for the center, and are my outsides connecting? And then we're going to pull up very carefully. And I'm going to go not too tight, not too loose. And then we're going to repeat the step. So if we do it exactly the same way, where we start on the left, and then move to the right, like so, and keep repeating that pattern without changing the direction of our squares, your handle will eventually start to turn. And as you turn, you kind of have to adjust how you're knotting with it. And I'll show that here in a second. If you want to keep it straight and have a nice even handle, then you're going to want to make sure you alternate left, right with where you start. So what I mean by that is, we want to start with our right going over. And then we take our left, if I can get it without falling, go under, and then pull through. Here we go. So just keep that in mind as you go. I'm going to go ahead and show the rotation, or I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more lines to show it as a straight handle with that alteration. And then I'm also going to show the curviness. And you're also welcome to mix it up, because that can look pretty cool. So I just did the right, so we're going to do the left now. The easiest way to really see that you're alternating, it's kind of hard to tell on here, but you'll see that the loops will either will kind of make a less than sign. Whereas if you're not alternating, they're just making a diagonal. Or a greater sign. They're making this sign. Okay, so this is what the straight shot looks like. So you have to be alternating left and right and left, however you're doing it. And you'll notice that it has essentially a greater sign and a less than sign as it goes. Your diagonals are going in different directions. And I'll go ahead and get a Sharpie to like really highlight that. If you want to have a curved handle or a curve at any point, then you pick a direction and you stick with it for a few knots. So let me go ahead and show you that. So I'm just going to do left because that seems easier for me for some reason. And as we go, you'll see it starts to kind of curve on its own. And in this case, it's curving, looks like it's curving a little left and a little right. So, and as you curve, you might need to either tape it down just to keep the curve straight, so that way you can work with it a little easier, or you can always at some point let it just cross over, and then it'll just switch up which is left and which is right. So let's go ahead and keep going for a few moments. All right, so Once you get to this point where it's starting to be very difficult and you don't want to turn it down, you can just go ahead and switch the directions. So in this case, what was your right will now be your left, and what was your left will now be your right, and you'll be able to keep going with that curve. So I kept going with my curve, so I have this like DNA type strand looking, and it looks pretty cool. And to finish this off, what we're going to do is we're going to take a portion of our middle and knot at the end, just a very basic knot. I'm going to tie mine twice. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and cut that excess off. Keep that on the other side. And we have here about, I would say probably 8 inches. 8 or 9 inches, yeah. For 1/2 of our strap. We're going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the second half of our strap. So we're going to do those lark's head or cow hitch knots again, and then our square knots. And if you want curves in it, you know, just remember to not alternate. If you don't want curves, you want it straight, make sure to alternate your left and your right, or your rights and your lefts. All right, now that you've finished both halves of your handle, we're going to go ahead and take our embroidery floss and our needle, and we're going to go ahead and sew these two together. And we provided you with a decent amount of thread, so use whatever you need to. I do recommend separating your floss. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And to separate your floss, don't take it more than 18 inches at a time. Which is roughly, I went a little bit over, but that's okay. But roughly from the point of your hand to your elbow, that's about how much you want to go at a time. And then to separate it, all embroidery floss, or most embroidery flosses, come in strands of 6. And to separate it, we want 2 strands of 3. So we're going to go ahead and you just peel it gently. It's less likely to tangle with a smaller length. And then as far as sewing these together, there's not really a specific stitch that you need to use. So you're just kind of going to be going through and connecting them as best as you can. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so we have this sewn together. Mine looks a little rough still. And what I'll probably do is go over that again with some more of my floss later. But now that it's nice and together, we're ready to proceed to the next step. So this is where that patience is going to be absolutely necessary. So we are going to once again do our lark's head cow hitch knot. What we're going to do is take 6 of our 8-foot long pieces. And what we're going to do, and in this case, we want them to actually be even. So go ahead and measure based on the bottom and fold them in half. And you're going to do 6 on one keychain and the other 6 on the other. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, now that we've finished putting together our lark's head cow hitches on both sides, now it's time to begin the painstaking process of tying this all together. Let's push my camera back quite a ways because this next process is going to take quite a bit of time. All right, so using one of my sides, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to pull the furthest 2 from on the right away from me, and the furthest 2 on the left also away from me. So that leaves that internal 6 left over. What we're going to do, 6, 8, leaves 8 left over. Woohoo! And then for the main piece, we're going to make more of those square knots going downwards, but not all the way. We're going to go ahead and just start. We can grab these 4 here. I'm just going to go ahead and do 2 or 3 up here. You know, it depends on how low you want your bag to droop. I'm only going to do, I think, 2. And I'm not going to worry about the alternating or not alternating because it's going to be apparent, but it's not necessary to. So I got my 2 down here. You can do however many you want, but do bear in mind that eventually you will need the rest of your string. We're going to do the same over here. And I'm going to go ahead and do those two there as well. You want them at about the same level if you're able to. If it's not perfect, that's okay. So we have our two there. So we have these nice two little knots here. And I'm going to repeat this same step on the other side. I'm going to take the other side of my other key ring, and I'm going to separate those two rightmost strings. Here we go. Let's move that so it doesn't fall off. My leftmost, and in a similar fashion, we're going to make our two square knots. Here we go. Try and get them in roughly the same position as the other side. If you're wanting to, you can research macraMay by visiting ppld.org and check out what books we have on the topic. Or you can check out our other macrame video. That was our keychain video. That one also covers how to insert a bead. And now comes the part that is going to make this whole thing a little tricky. So with those strands that we kept to the side, we're going to take, here we go. I'm doing my best. So you can't see it, but I have my two key rings here and here. And I'm going to have them meet part way. And I'm going to go ahead and do my square knot. So let's go ahead and do that. And depending on how wide you want your bag to open, that's how far down you want to go. So I'm actually going a little ways down. I would say probably at 4 or 5 inches. You know, it's up to you. If you want a really narrow bag, you'll want to be a lot closer. And I'm going to go ahead and do the double here as well, just to give it that consistent look all around at the top. But then after this, we will not be doing the doubles. All right, so we have that there. We're going to repeat that on the other side. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just flip this over, separate this all out, try and keep it nice and even. And we are going to, once again, grab our two strands that we left down at the beginning there. We're going to meet them here in the middle. Again, do our best to keep this even. So I'm going to pull this up now. So we have our bag nice and connected now. And what you're going to want to do is, I'm going to place this here again. And this is where it gets a little tricky. So we'll go ahead and just start, and we'll work our way left to right. So I'm going to take two strands here that are at the base of one of our first square knot groups, and then two strands here from one of our ones in the middle. We're going to make sort of an odd kind of diamond shape. We're going to go ahead and do one square knot, just a complete square. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. And as we work our way down, you want your connections to be a lot closer, but starting at the top, it's okay if it's a little wider. So this is more of a triangle than a diamond, but that's okay. We'll pull that aside, and then we're going to work our way to the right, or if you want to work your way to the left, that's fine too. And we're going to repeat the same step. We're going to take this other two from our center and then two from one of our knots over here. You want to make sure you're going in a circle, in like following the connections basically. And we're going to go ahead and make that into a square knot as well. And you'll notice I'm not super worried about alternating right and left, left and right, or anything like that. And that's because it's really not going to matter for this part. Just because you're just making the knots just make the secure connection. So we now have this 3 triangle piece, and we're going to take those 2 that were here. This is one of our original starter knots. We're going to take 2 to the right of it, and you're just going to keep doing that over and over and over again. And we're going to do that also on the back. And this is where it might be convenient if you have like a chair or maybe a hanging place, or someone who can hold stuff, or if you're comfortable rotating things a lot, this is where that'll become convenient. If not, you just have to do what I'm doing, which is your best. And that's all you can do. And we know we have been successful because we end up with one left. Like, not an odd number left, but like only one not left to do. If you end up with like two random notes that are just, or strings that are just hanging, it means you may have skipped a piece to go back. The good news is this is an easy knot to unknot. So let's go and pull this out. And we have the beginnings of our macrame bag. So if you hold it in kind of inside out, we'll see if I can do this at all. Here we go. You can kind of see it makes sort of some kind of polygon. I want to say an octagon, but I don't think that's correct, just because I don't feel like counting. But you'll see it kind of makes that shape, and as you keep going, it'll continue to make that shape. And as you go down, while you're making your circles or your knots, here we go. You want to get closer and closer and make tighter connections. And the reason why is because then your fruit or whatever produce you get at the store or whatever you're using this bag for doesn't fall out of the bag. Our original sample, the holes were way too big, and we have oranges that we used for the photography for this, and they fell out of the bag. So you just want to be careful with how wide that is. If you find that you do make it too wide and it's too late to fix, that's okay. You can always, just put a plastic bag or something in it, reuse that plastic bag. And now that we're past that initial level, it's going to mostly look like kind of like squares and diamonds. So that's the shape you're going for. Okay, so when you reach the stopping point, if you want to go all the way towards the end, that's fine. Make sure you leave some room for knotting the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and stop here just because I don't want to go too far. What we're going to do is we're going to take the two middle of one side and the two middle of another point, ideally the opposite point if you're able to. We're going to take those two. Let's see if I can get it. Here we go. And we're going to go ahead and tie a knot at the base, like so. Okay. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that step with the rest of our points here. We're just doing the insides for now because we'll do the outsides in a second. And we have the basics for our bottom. So we'll go ahead and adjust that up here. And carefully, we're going to find some of those strands that we didn't tie. So you're looking for these lines like right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do one more set of square knots as best as we can. And then we're going to tie it into the base that we just created. So I'm actually going to do doubles again like I did at the beginning. And then I'm going to go ahead and take so I have my doubles here. I'm going to go ahead and take that and just tie it, or at least set it with the bit bottom. And we'll tie it in a moment. So let's go ahead and do that with a couple of others. So we have a base created now. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to take all of that. I'm just going to tie one nice big solid not here at the bottom with all 8 of my cords. Here we go. And what we're going to do after that is tighten it as tight as we can. Cut off the excess. All right. And if you're happy with that, then you're good to go. If you want to add more knots or beads or something, you can do that. I'm going to do one more set of knots just because I'm one of those people that's always worried about things falling apart. And then once you're done, you'll remove the excess. We have a produce bag. All right, thank you for joining us today. So here is our completed produce bag. You'll notice that as you put stuff in, it might kind of form like a weird sock shape, but you can just adjust things as you add it, and it should stretch a little bit. It's not the stretchiest cording, but it does have a little bit of give, so you should be able to go. This is completely machine washable, unless you're using like glue or duct tape or anything like that. But yeah, so we now have a nice produce bag to take to the store or wherever we need to on the go. Thank you again for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by liking and subscribing to the PPLD TV channel. If you want to find out more about what the library has to offer coming up, visit ppld.org/programs, and you'll be able to take a look at what's coming up at the library. Thank you again. Okay, we need to stop doing that.